The NBA is a pretty predictable league. With a season that usually includes 82 games, it's fairly clear how good and bad teams are after the regular season. This means that when it gets to playoff time, it's not that difficult to predict the teams that are going to win each series and even make the finals. However, in a shortened season that has been plagued with injuries and craziness, there's been more difficulties in predicting what teams' records are truly representative of their skills and abilities to win games. In the over 70-year history of the NBA, only two teams that were a 4 seed or lower has won the NBA Finals, and there has never been a 5, 7, or 8 seed to win an NBA championship. However, with the craziness of this past season, the Los Angeles Lakers have been set up to break this unbreakable achievement concerning championship winners throughout NBA history. If you've ever made an unbiased NBA playoff prediction, you're fairly likely to be at least partly right. Simply looking at the playoff picture and having a general idea of how good teams are, if you predict who's going to make the NBA Finals, you'll probably at least guess one team correctly like half the time. The 6 years between the 2015 and 2020 NBA playoffs, we can see that the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James make up 10 of the 12 teams that made the NBA Finals through those years. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that these were pretty obvious guesses through these years. The Warriors were the number 1 seed in 4 of their 5 finals appearances, while having possibly the best team of all time, even ending one of their seasons with the best record of all time in 2016. On the other hand, whatever team LeBron was on was the 1 seed 3 of their 5 finals appearances, and he had some pretty good players around him most of the time, whether it was Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love or Anthony Davis. LeBron also being in the East for 4 of his 5 finals appearances made it a bit easier for him because the competition wasn't as good as he has to face in the Western Conference. You may be watching this and thinking I'm a little egotistical, saying that it's pretty easy to guess who's going to make the NBA Finals. But through these last 6 years, I'd say yes. Let's say you watched the NBA Finals in 2015 and 2016, and you saw the Warriors and LeBron make it both these years. You'd have to be a little bit out there to think that at least one of them would not have made the NBA Finals in the 2 years after, where the Warriors kept the same team and LeBron was still on the Cavaliers. Then in 2019, if you didn't guess that the Warriors would make the finals again after keeping their same team, then I'd be a bit confused. And then on the Eastern Conference side, I'd give you a pass if you didn't guess the Raptors would make the finals. Finally, then in 2020, if you didn't guess the Lakers to make the finals, I could understand that basically only if you picked the Clippers though. And then on the Eastern Conference side of the bracket, if you didn't pick the Miami Heat, that is extremely understandable. 2020 was a bit more unpredictable though, but that was because the season was shortened and there was an extended break between the regular season and the playoffs. Anyways, aside from my recent historical analysis of the NBA Finals and your ability to know the best teams in the NBA each year, we can also look at the complete historical numbers of the NBA's history, which will then make it clear what teams are most likely to make and win the NBA Finals. Out of the 74 NBA championships in the league's history, a 1 seed has won the finals 54 times, which is 73% of the time. A number 2 seed, on the other hand, has won 11 times, which is about 15% of the time. When combining the 1, 2, and 3 seeds to win NBA championships, we can see that these seedings have won 72 of 74 NBA finals, which is over 97% of the time. The only teams that have won an NBA Finals that were a 4 seed or below are the 1969 Boston Celtics, who were a 4 seed, and the 1995 Houston Rockets, who were a 6 seed. When you look at all these stats, you can see that if you're trying to correctly guess the winner of the NBA Finals, if you put the 1 seed from each conference to make it, and you randomly guess the winner, you are going to be correct a third of the time. Now, if you only want to predict what teams are going to make the NBA Finals, you have a really good chance of correctly predicting that as well. Since 1984, 40 of the 74 teams to make the NBA Finals have been 1 seeds, which is 54%. And 61 of 74 teams have been a 1 or 2 seed, which is over 82%. Only 6 of 74 teams to have made the finals since 1984 have been a 4 seed or lower, which is 8%. Since 1984, only 1 5 seed and 1 6 seed has made the NBA Finals. Also, in the entire history of the NBA playoffs, only 1 8 seed has made the NBA Finals, with no 7 seed ever making it. From this, we can see that if you're trying to be correct on at least one of the teams to make the NBA Finals, you can just guess the 1 seeds and be right over 50% of the time. Then, if you know a little bit about basketball and understand why a team that maybe should be the 1st seed isn't, then you could probably guess this more than half of the time. For example, in 2018, the Warriors were the number 2 seed in the West. However, I think it was pretty clear that they were the best team. Also, this year the Nets are the 2 seed in the East, but they have the highest odds of winning the NBA championship, and it's pretty obvious that they are the best team in the league, or at least in the Eastern Conference. Now, going away from betting odds and personal predictions, we can look towards the Lakers and how they got into this position of possibly breaking the achievement of being the first 7 seed to not only make the NBA Finals, but the first 7 seed or lower to win the NBA Finals. The Lakers won the NBA Finals last year, so it makes sense to think that they were the best team in the league, and therefore once again would be near the top of the league for the record at the end of the season. Most people would have agreed that the Lakers could have only gotten better. With the newly assembled team that had a shortened season the year before, their chemistry could only get better through another season. Also signing players such as Marc Gasol, Dennis Schroeder, Markieff Morris, and Jared Dudley, the team got some really good additions. Their season certainly did not go as planned though. After starting off the season with an impressive 21 wins and only 6 losses, the team was then crippled with injuries of LeBron James and Anthony Davis that had them ending the season with a record of 42 wins and 30 losses, which put them at the 7th seed in the Western Conference. This year was extremely unique though, and it had to be a unique year to lead the Lakers to be the 7th seed. Two of the external factors that are completely uncontrollable for why the Lakers are the 7th seed are because they play in the Western Conference and the season was shortened by 10 games. First off, being in the Western Conference, the Lakers would have to win more games to have a better playoff seeding, opposed to if they were in the Eastern Conference. If the Lakers were in the Eastern Conference, they would be the 4th seed instead of the 7th seed. And then this situation would have never been able to happen. Also, if the Lakers came out with a win and one more game this season, they would be the 5th seed as they were tied with the Trailblazers and Mavericks with the same record, but ended up with the worst seeding because of the tiebreaker rules. Now, looking at what would have happened if this was a normal season and each team played 82 games rather than 72, then the Lakers would also probably be in a better position. LeBron and Anthony Davis magically got better just in time for the playoffs, and I think they had a little facade going and were trying to show that they were hurt, while they actually probably could have played some games that they ended up missing. But let's just say there was another 10 games. This would be another 10 games that both players would be healthy for, and then I would assume they'd come out with a better record than the Mavericks and Trailblazers, who they are currently tied with, which would then put the Lakers in 5th place. Another question you may have is why I think this is an unbreakable achievement, as just because a team has never done it does not mean that it is unbreakable. It is certainly possible for a 7 seed to win an NBA championship, but given how the NBA season traditionally is 82 games and the playoffs are a best of 7 series, it makes the playoffs fairly predictable. After 82 games, it's clear who the best teams are, because they perform well, especially because they want that home court advantage in the playoffs. Also, since each series in the playoffs is best of 7, it's pretty likely that the overall better team is going to win. This is opposed to the NFL or NCAA, where Cinderella playoff runs are more likely since teams can win a fluke game 1, 2, or 3 games in a row. Teams can definitely get lucky a couple games in a row. And let's say a player gets injured for a game or two or something like that, it just lessens the overall consequence of that injury on the series as a whole. It's very hard for a team to get lucky in 4 of 7 games. Even further, it's extremely hard for a team to get lucky in multiple of these playoff series. I do think the Lakers could win the NBA title this year. And even if they do, that still guarantees that the NBA is extremely predictable. This year is very unlike many others. However, I do believe the trend of good teams being seeded lower and possibly having deep playoff pushes could possibly continue. I think after this season, teams may rest star players more and not really care what seed they are in the playoffs as long as they make it in the first place. Home court advantage does matter a bit, but at the end of the day, having your star players healthy and fully rested matters most. I think the implementation of the play-in tournament will push this back a bit though, because teams don't want to be in that 7-8 seed, so they'll want to stay near the top of their conferences. At the end of the day, I think if the Lakers win, that's pretty remarkable. The way the NBA is, it's extremely unlikely to have a low-seeded team win the finals. More unlikely than probably any other major sports league. In a typical NBA season, a 7 seed won't even make the second round, let alone get to the NBA Finals. But this is no typical NBA season, and I think LeBron would feel extra good to be the first 7 seed to win an NBA Finals, breaking an unbreakable achievement, adding to his legacy. Do you think the Lakers are going to win the NBA Finals? Do you think I'm over-exaggerating how unlikely it is to win the NBA championship as a low-seeded team? Like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.